This is a Just Show Me How video for the simple basics of Photoshop. Let's get started. To open Photoshop, to open and start a new file, is to determine what kind of file you want to create. Is it a film, a video? Is it for a phone? Is it for the web? Is it art and illustration? Is it for print? Is it a photo? The easiest way to begin is to just choose a print, letter, legal or letter size. When you select the letter size, you get the width of 8.5 by 11 in inches. Click Create. This opens a basic canvas size, and the way you determine that is image and image size, 8.5 by 11. So your screen is going to stay this size unless you change it. When you first open Photoshop, all of the buttons and the menus and the panels can be extremely confusing. But you don't have to know what every one of these buttons and whistles do to use Photoshop for some very basic but detailed things. Make it easier for you to begin working is to select Window, Workspace, and Essentials. Now notice how these panels are set on the right. When I change it to Essentials, they move just around just a little bit. One of the other points is see these panels, Properties, Adjustments, Libraries, Layers, Channels, Paths. All of these are on this menu on the window. If you lose the Layers tab, you can go back and select it to put it right back where it was, which this is the text, the characters, the fonts that you would use, and the colors or the paragraphs. Let's find another one. Color is already there. Brushes. So we can turn on brushes and it automatically opens here. So basically this is the only things that you'll pretty much need to work with until you get deep into the snazzy Photoshop options of what's available and what you need to have access to. Now, one of the questions that I get most is, how do I delete the color on an image? So I'm going to open this image, and if you notice here, we've got a white background. So if you see over here, it says we have layer 1 selected and it has a white background. So if you want to remove the white background, go to the magic eraser tool, right click on it, and select the magic eraser. Click one time on the white and it's gone. Now you have to save it as a PNG. So you want to file, do save as. You can't save this as a JPEG because it would add the white back in. This was originally a PNG file, so it'll let us save it again as a PNG. But this time you want to add yourself a little note in here that lets you know this one's different, that one's clear, and hit save. It's as easy as that. Done. That one's done. So what if I wanted to change the color of an image? This is black right now, or dark gray. What if I wanted to change that color? With the color selected, select the blue, hit the paint bucket, and drop the color on. And if you'll notice, Photoshop did everything but inside the letters, and you can easily just add those in. And in most cases this will work until you get into some complicated graphics that has more than 2 colors. Then it gets to be a little bit more work. But now you've changed the color of that graphic and you're done. Save it. Notice over here though that the background is white, and you see the lock. The background is locked and it's white. You can unlock that background and then delete it using the trash can here. And now the background of this image is clear or opaque, however you please. Well, what if I wanted to add a faded background of red? You add red either here, here, or here. You can change the color, but I don't want to add an outline, which is called stroke in Photoshop, so I'm going to take that off. So now there's no stroke, there's no outline. And if you look at the properties over here, you'll see you have the same options for the fill and the stroke. So a lot of these bells, buttons, and whistles are just duplicates of each other. So don't let them intimidate you. Back on the layers, take the opacity down to 50% to just give that a shade. Now you can take and stretch the background to cover the entire white square. But what if I want it to be taller than it is wide? To do that, use the handles, but hold down the shift key and pull one side, and that's going to make it taller, or let you adjust one side at a time. So now I've got basically a 50-60% opacity red background on this. Now if I wanted to add text in, then you select the text, type in up here, it added in text for me. So we'll type audio tools. Now see how it went right on the top? You select the character, select paragraph, and move it centered. Nope, that's justified. Center and center. But it doesn't move it off the top. Drag it down to the point where you want it. And then the font, take your font up, scrolling the mouse wheel. But look, it didn't change anything because nothing was selected. So highlight the audio tools, then use the mouse to increase the font size. And maybe we want to change the font color to a black, and OK. And then maybe we want to make it italic. No, don't like that. I'm going to change from this font to something snazzy. And how am I going to do that? I want to go with handwritten, not quite that handwritten, and scroll down the list. I like that. And it needs to be a little bigger and maybe a little taller. So we'll take the vertical scale up. And now it's just about where I want it. Except that's kind of purplish. Doesn't match. Let's change the color to this one. And now it matches the box. Now we'll talk about adding a graphic to your screen. So I can double click on a picture and it'll bring this into the screen, where I could then change the image and adjust it to black and white. So now the color is all removed and I have a black and white image. So a lot of times this is all you want to do with a picture, is just change it to black and white. You can also take a photo that's fairly dark. This one's not too bad, but you can use the image auto tone to clean it up just a little bit without having to know all the fancy stuff. You can also do the curves adjustment and just drag this line up or down to darken the picture, or if you just want to darken the lower tones or the higher tones and leave the lower tones alone. You can do this with the curve without having to be a Photoshop expert. So I changed a little bit of the color. Then if I go to auto contrast, still, that makes a few more changes. Let's try that again with another photo. This one is outside, so it was dark in the first place. So if I do the auto tone, changes it a little bit, but not much. The auto color. All right, and then try the curves. You can take the background up pretty light, so you can even see the dog pen now, but the foreground is way too bright. So it's hard to play with that happy medium to get everything exactly like it should be or realistic looking in the first place. And you can always say, never mind, and just cancel it if it's not working out for you. But making these small changes sometimes may just be all you need, or just take it to grayscale and have a black and white picture. And a lot of times that's all you want. So we'll close this off, not saving that. Next I want to show you something as complicated as that Joshua entering the promised land picture I just showed you. I created this, the pictures that I'm going to show you here were all created while I was working on the Bible Study to Go project, or World Missions University that I'm no longer a part of. But this picture started off as an image, just a plain image, and I added to it, made the background here with a splatter flare, and then added in another flare and my name in the corner. So this was a plain picture that I just used Photoshop and some flares to create something different out of that. And if you look at something like the Word became flesh, I've got a baby's foot. Let's turn it off, turn off all the layers. Turn them on one at a time. Okay, so I started out with a plain background and the text here of the Word became flesh and tabernacled among us. Added in some white paper on that side, a little more paper, the baby's foot, and a scroll, then the baby's foot again, and it's opaque so you can see the scroll through the foot. And then a simple shape to make the words stand out. And that is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 layers in one picture that makes something unique and different. Give you another example of this. Let's do a catalog. Look at the catalog cover. And the catalog cover is just individual shapes. And if you look at this, this happens a lot. If you open somebody else's Photoshop file and there's stuff here but you can't click it, it just means that the lock is on. Take the lock off and then you can select this. And I'll show you how to make these masks, which is what these are called. So I'll take this lock off. So now you can actually access each one of these shapes. And each one of these is just a shape. So we'll go over how to make some of these picture shapes. Do File, New, and we want Print and Letter and Portrait. Create. Alright, we're going to add back the photo of my brother putting my bicycle together. And we want to include this in a shape. We'll say a circle. Let's get him. Oh, that's not a circle. Let's get a circle. draw it over the picture to get it basically in the size we want, about here. Doesn't matter the color. What you're going to do is put the shape behind the picture. Notice I just moved it around on the layers. Now, select your picture, and to add a mask, hold down the Alt key. And see how my mouse just changed? Move the mouse around till it changes to that arrow, and then click. Boom, you got a picture in a circle. So let's try that again. There's another picture, and this time we'll put it in a custom. I'm going to custom draw. Oh, we have a tiger. We don't want a tiger. We don't want any wild animals. Let's make a little tree. So here's a tree. We'll move the tree over a bit. And we'll get rid of the tiger. Okay, so now we have the tree as a shape. Put it under. Hold the Alt. And my brother is a tree, which would make him very happy. Oh, see, I moved it around even afterwards. I can get a little more of him and the bicycle in. Then I can move this one around a little. And if you want to move them both, then you have to select them both to move it. So maybe we'll do this. And now we have two pictures in a shape. So this custom draw, let's try that again. File, new, and this time we'll go with a landscape and create. And we're going to insert a shape first. So we're on the custom shape tool. Go up here to the shape. We've got leaves and trees. Got boats. Oops, didn't mean to do that. What did I draw? Oh, a tree again. It's still selected. Okay, other than boats, we have flowers. All right, let's select a flower and draw one of those. So now I've got a rose. Okay, I have a niece whose face would just look wonderful in that flower. Let's find that picture. All right, so we'll take my niece's picture and put it behind the flower so we can see. Oops, still drawing flowers. Get rid of this one. All right, so let's see what Shauna in Disneyland dropped a flower back under. Hold down the Alt key and click, and she's in the flower. Very cool. So you can increase the size. Appearance. But the stroke is still black, so let's change it to the red. Okay, and then let's increase the stroke a little bit, the outline. Let's make it a little larger. What is that? Ooh, that's a bit much. Okay, take it back down. Now, we can have all kind of fun with that. Make it smaller, larger, move the picture around. And she's a flower, which would make her very happy. Okay, so now we can get rid of the tree. No, we're not going to save it. Even though this would really, my brother would like it, so I'm going to save it for him. Save as. On my computer, which takes me to my blog folder, and we're going to have Darren as a tree. This will make him happy. And notice Darren as a tree that I just saved went into the folder, but my file is still untitled and not saved. That's because I chose to save a copy. Now if I just hit save, the only option it's going to give us is to save a Photoshop file. And this is a new thing that Photoshop, or I think it's all of the Adobe products, have done. You can't hit save as anymore and just choose to save it as a PNG or a JPEG. If the file has not been saved as a PSD, then all you can do is save it as a copy. But if I hit save, then still the only option I get is to save it as a Photoshop file. So I'd have to save Darren as a tree as a Photoshop file in order to get it to save to the hard drive, which it just did as a PSD. So pay attention to how you're saving things so you don't end up losing any files. And that is how you do a mask. Okay, now let's talk about, we're going to talk about missing fonts. Notice here on the layers, I have this nice little caution sign over the Sabbath day. And if you double click on that, it comes up to let me know that there's fonts missing. Well, the reason this happened is that I had purchased a subscription for Photoshop and Creative Cloud, and I took a break from the work I was doing, so I stopped my subscription for a while. And I've restarted my subscription, but I haven't gone back and downloaded all of the special graphics I used while I was creating these. So this is asking me if I want to replace or manage it. And we talked about just replacing it, but now I'm going to manage it. So what is it asking me to do? Some of the fonts are missing. Replace the font. Gammond. I do want to replace it. I don't. So I'm going to say cancel. Since I have a Creative Cloud subscription, I can go to Adobe and search for this font in particular and reinstall it. I guess if we install the family, then perhaps we'll get the right one. So I want to activate this font. You've activated 8 fonts. Let's see if that worked. Garment. And it needs to be a little bolder. So it's back. And what was this one? The same thing. We'll change it. And there we go. And this time we'll just go ahead and pick it bold. Alright. Last one. And now it's here. Just pick the bold. So all of the fonts are now corrected. And where I went to on the website is just go to Adobe Fonts, and you can go fontsadobe.com and look up the font that you want to use. That's if you have a Creative Cloud. I'm not sure that that would work with just a Photoshop subscription, but if not, then you can go online to look for fonts to install. One of the sites that is okay to use is dafont.com. So you can go scroll down the list, find a font that you like. I like this Alexander, and download the font. Open the download folder, extract all, double click on the font and select install. This installs the font to Windows. So now if I go, let's open PowerPoint and type a title here, and let's see if that font shows up. And there it is. And the font's installed on your computer. That's all there is to it. New fonts. Next, I want to talk about this picture. How this picture was made in the first place was I made these individual pictures and added the text to make the 6 days of creation. But then I wanted to add in the 7th day. So to do that, you have to check, I want to check the image size, 26 by 15, of how big that one was. And what I want to do is make this bigger version, so I can add in the 7th day that God rested. To create this is create a new project file, and I changed the size to inches, and I want this to be 26 by 15. Is that right? 26 by 15? 26.6 is what it ended up. And I'll leave the resolution at 72 and hit to create. Now this makes a large canvas of what's here for me to add pictures onto. So if I wanted to add the 7-day picture here and shrink it down, then I could do it this way. And then just make my background colors, which that was a purple, and I believe I still have all the Bible study to go, libraries, and we want to use the darker purple, this one. So select this and paint the background, gotta have a hold of it. Okay, so that gives me my dark purple background to start off with. Now I can take and adjust this to the size that I want it to be. And then what else do we need to do? We need to add a white border. So to add a white border to this picture, double click on the layer to open up the layer style. And I want to add a border. Right there is a stroke. Check it and then select it. So right now it has a black stroke. Let's change it to a white all the way up in this top corner, and okay. Notice we've got a nice white stroke now. Let's increase the size a bit, too much, and okay. So now we've added a border. Next, let's look at day 7 and the Sabbath day on adding the font, and we know the font on that is Garmin Pro, and it's white. So go back to our new one, and we'll save this 6 days. We'll save this as 6 days, and on the computer into this blog folder. Alright, and I'll make this downloadable for you as a Photoshop file. when we're finished. Okay, since day's going here, let's get that out of the way. And right here, I'm going to type days. And is that in the right? It's in the right font, because we were already using that font. So scoot it over. What else have we got? Day 7 and Sabbath day. Well, instead of typing these again, let's just copy them and take them over. Day 7 and the Sabbath day. And now down here on the bottom, God rested. And move that over. And that's how you can adjust the picture size. All right, in this way. Let's do it a different way. So now save. And then we will save a copy as a JPEG. And I'll make these downloadable for you. All right, so the next poster is my Jehovah Speaks Directly to Israel. And I wanted to show you this one. Again, we have missing fonts. All right, and view the family. And yes, I like this font. No, it's not bold. Just medium, much better. And change this back. Medium. Just a much better font. What I want to show you on this one is the different layers. Now if we cut off all these layers, you can get a little bit better idea of how I started this picture. The final graphic. This started off as just a mountain and clouds. Then we added lightning from the sky. Then I added a fire on top of a mountain. And I just keep layering. Then we added text. And you have the people of Israel standing below the mountain and God talking from the top of the mountain and the fire on the mountain. And each one of those is just one layer after the other to create this picture. That's the fun you can do with layers. Next we'll talk about actual posters. The posters that you can see behind me are all posters that I made at one time or another to use at a conference while I was working with these specific projects. Let's look at the freestanding banner. And this one is actually 39 by 64. And you can see how tall it is. It is, although it is sitting in a chair, it's still very tall. And I can stand this up on an easel when I do one of the conferences. To create this in the first place, you want to go look at a print shop near you for the size that you would like to create this from, the size you want to use. This is a foam board and they have specific sizings. I went to Office Depot and had this printed. The reason I say somebody near you is because you want to go by and look at it before they mount it onto foam, because that does cost extra. And if you can go by and look at it first, you can stop it before any problems are printed off that you have to pay for. If we go to Office Depot Office Max into their print area and select posters, then when you start determining what size poster you want a custom foam board poster, select customize, and it'll give you the sizes that you're looking for. 36 by 48, 24 by 36, and so forth. So this specific poster was a 40 by 64, so even bigger than these. Let's try a different one. 40 by 60. That would be it. Although it did end up 40 by 64. Okay, I must have adjusted it a little bit after I got there. It's been a little while since I made this one. So after you've selected where you're going to get your poster printed and how big you actually want it to be, then you can design your Photoshop file to the correct size. And you want to create that new size. So we're going to select the biggest one they've got here, 40 by 60. So I'm going to change it to, it's not letting me type, 40 by 60 for the size, and it is portrait, and create. So now you start off with a canvas the size that you want to use. So we're going to save this and save as on the computer. This will be a 40 by 60 poster. So for this poster, the top here just had a blue square, blue rectangle, and this was, which colors was I using? This is Bible Study to Go colors. I didn't use purples, I used blues, so we'll change to blue. And then we have this gigantic header, a logo, and the text on the bottom. Now notice this text, so we can go back into here and add a logo, change to the selection tool, copy, use Control C, Control V, and notice how much bigger that is. Why is that? .40 inches by 60 inches. The resolution is set at 300. So that actually changes the size of what we're looking at. Let's go back over here. Delete this off. Notice how big that was. Let's delete it. Go back to the image size. And since this is going to be printed, change the resolution to 300. Photoshop will adjust. And that just made this a whole lot larger. So now, paste that icon again. And it fits just perfect. Even though the size, the actual size of my graphic here didn't change, changing the resolution makes this larger from the computer standpoint and from when it's printed. You always want to make the file larger than what you need to keep the graphics crisp and printing clearly. So now let's talk about this text right here, which was saying how to just add, all right, let's just add Home Bible Studies. To do this, you would add, it's easier to add free by itself first so that you can adjust it good. You can change the color to white, or open the character and change it to white. So this is Madrid Pro. What was it over here? Articulate. And we're missing another font. Okay, the articulate font is added in, and now we need to add in the text for the Free Home Bible Study. And then take the font to about 300. Let's see how big that is. Nope, that's too big. Go for a 250. That looks better. select. That's about right. This next font, it's not just the font, this next paragraph has been adjusted by hitting Shift Enter to split the sentence up. And I want to show you how that's done. So now we have a full sentence. I want to go back. I'm going to select the text tool and click. And this time it actually went to 250. So let's see what that will do. But the text is white, so can't be seen. Let's change it to this green. And now you see that it's one long sentence at 250. I'm going to take it down to 200. Alright, and you saw that it was split. So after you've pasted that sentence in, double click until you see it highlighted in black, click again. So my mouse is right before the R. Hold the Shift and hit the Enter key. Let's try that again. Just hit the Enter key. Nope, did the same thing. So where did it stop at before? Resources, and then after all the world. So let's see what's going on. Teach into all. So we're going to hit Shift Enter again. Now what's going on? Problem is that the text leading is not set large enough for this size font. So you're going to have to increase the setting. Let's try 100. That's almost right. Let's try 200. And that's pretty close to perfect. Most of the time that will work to have the leading set at the same size as the font. I'm going to go back over here. The font is 237 and the leading is set at 237. So adjust this around until you get the size the way you want it to look. Add in the hard return yourself. If you want to add text to show up like it would in a paragraph with wrapped text, then you click and draw your text box. Notice it puts in the fake text for you. Then paste in. Now this text will wrap according to the size of your text box. That's the main difference, whether you click and paste or click and draw to make your text go into the right shape. The other posters, I Know the God of the Book. This was made by adding my book covers to each one of the books I have on sale on Amazon onto a poster. This one was a banner, black printed on black. It was very eye-catching. It jumped at you. And this one also is just different layers. Each one of these is an individual layer. And this, the map, I made in Illustrator and then brought into Photoshop as layers to be edited. I also created the logo in Photoshop. And I am not a Photoshop expert if you go online and look at some of the things that these people do. But there are all manner of tips and tricks of things that you can do within Photoshop without being an expert. Open it up, use it, learn from it, and add to your skills as you go. Alright, this is a picture that I am actually using for my See Valisa travel. And I noticed these signs. I don't really like those signs being there. So one of the things you can do is to use this clone stamp tool. So, since this is way in the background, now to change the size, you see how big it is. I don't want it that big. Let's take it down. And this hardness, this is down to where it's just almost 0. It's very soft. This is up to a solid. I want to go somewhere in the middle. So to use this clone stamp, I want to kind of make these bushes cover up these signs. So I'm going to use the Alt key and basically stamp that spot right there. Then I'm going to move my mouse over and keep stamping until Photoshop uses the background. Let's stamp again. Uses the same background area to basically take out those little white signs. So you have to move it around and fiddle with it sometimes. I think this might do better as the gravel. And just keep clicking till that picture is basically gone. Those little signs are gone. Now, oh, we have one over here too. So click over here, get rid of it. Whoops. Now, they're basically gone, but this spot right here still kind of looks a little bad. So you can use the blur tool and make it a little bigger and a little harder and kind of blur that spot right there out a little. And it didn't work as well as I wanted it to, so maybe I'll smudge it a little. Well, I don't want to smudge it that big. So take it down, still about the same, and just kind of smudge this gravel into, or the fog into the gravel to kind of hide where you did a little diddling there. And then zoom it back out, and those white signs are gone. And all you see is the train and the bushes and the gravel. So save those changes. And we'll save it. I'll save it as a JPEG. And this is train edited. A nice trick, quickly done. So we'll close this one off. The next thing I want to show you is how I did this heaven and hell pictures. But on these layers, if you take off the effects of each one of these layers, and you see that these are just black and white pencil photos, period. So to add this, I added in these effects on the layer. This effect is a satin. Let me open it up so you can see it. There's a satin on it and a color overlay, 2 of them, and a gradient overlay and a drop shadow. So it brings in this effect, just adding color to a black and white image. Let's play around. I'll include this photo too. I'll include these so that you can take a look at how individually, how each one of these were done. Just with adding in bevels and emboss and color overlays, you can completely change a black and white drawing into something different. During this time that I was working on this project, I was also taking Hebrew. I took 2 semesters of Hebrew. And I made this Yehovah. And this, I have gotten more comments out of this picture that I created than any other. It's very eye-catching. And it too is created with just many, many layers. Let me show you the layers on this one. Almost everything in here is its own layer, and especially such as the fire. There are individual little groups of fire in there that if I cut them off, it started off with just just a bush, and then I added the fire in onto the bush to create this. And I have to say, I did work on it several days, but I was extremely happy with it when I finished. And the letters, the font, and the effects of Yehovah are overlays and adding in a stroke in the satin and an outer glow to make the letters appear this way. And these were beveled in. I actually created them in another Photoshop file and then imported them here. The last thing that I want to show you for this session is the object selection tool. So if you select the object selection tool and then draw around a section of the picture that you want. So we're going to take these two kids standing by the water and take them out of this picture. And it takes a couple of seconds for the selection tool to pick them out. So now you can see the line. If I zoom in, you can see the line that's actually going around them and that it has selected them. Now, to erase the background around them, you want to go up to Select and Inverse, because what it's done here, if I select the eraser, it's going to erase. It has selected this. I don't want to erase them. I want to erase what's around them. So I'm going to select and inverse. Now it lets me erase the background away from them. So I'll take that background off, and while they're still selected, then go in with the magic eraser and take it away. So that's about as close as I can get, but if you notice here, it didn't quite get his chin. So I'll hit Control D to deselect and take my eraser back, take it down as small as I can get it, and get this area under his chin. Just tighten that up a little bit. You could go around and fix all of these little spots that it didn't quite get close enough. But that's a whole lot easier to do than go around both of their bodies and select every bit and edit every little teeny spot. So now I'm going to draw a square around them to select them. Control Copy. And then I'm going to paste them into this field. So I just completely changed them from in front of the water to standing in front of the woods. And you can see that the picture's not quite sharp enough. They've got an edge around them. As long as it's not something you're going to print, because it would show up in print, you can hit Enter to insert that. And then go to the Blur tool. Select the layer, and with the Blur tool, just kind of make those edges blur into the background. Is this perfect? No. Depending on what you're trying to do. If you just want to make a silly picture, depending on what you're trying to do, this may or may not work for you. But it's a trick I have used often. And now they're in a completely different picture. When you zoom out, it's hard to tell the difference in where they were before and where they are now. This concludes this Photoshop tutorial on Show Me the Simple Basics of Photoshop.